Good morning again. My name is Renate Fruchter. For many of you already visited our project-based learning lab here at Stanford. And today I am the moderator of a really exciting session that focuses on augmenting team intelligence and performance. And more we hear about knowledge workers and knowledge work productivity. And today we are going to explore questions related to how can we really not only improve, but broaden, deepen, and amplify human intelligence. As I was listening to our great keynote this morning, Neil shared with us so many insights. I want to mention to you that we are actually looking at AI cube, meaning the interrelationship between artificial intelligence and augmented intelligence. And augmented intelligence, as many of you know, and you already heard Doug Engelbart mentioned twice today by Roy P. and Martha, it's actually the dialogue started actually in the 50s and 60s when Doug wrote that seminal paper on augmenting human intelligence, and Lick Leader was talking about man-human symbiosis. And we are on a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we are going to have a wonderful panel of speakers that will take us from real-world scenarios to exploratory research scenarios, from corporate settings to learning education settings. I invited the four speakers to actually enjoy the presentations of their colleagues, and each of them will have about 15 minutes to present their position statement and share with us insights. And then we will be all back here for Q&A and hopefully a fruitful dialogue. So buckle up. And our first speaker is Mr. Takao Shudo from Konica Minolta. And he is going to talk about augmenting teams and using tools to improve performance. Shudo-san, please.
Good morning. My name is Takao Shudo, and here is my bio. But I'm in the collaboration tool development. And from 2011, we are working with Renate about productivity improvement for team collaboration. So the first, we are thinking assumption in future work style. My company, Konica Minolta, providing MFPs into the real office. So we are thinking about the future work style, how is the real office? So there are so many personal desks in the office now, but it will be gradually lessened. But for the communication or collaboration, this real office will remain in the office, we think. But we would like to ask you all about how do you feel or how do you think about the real office change in the future? So already today Neil talked. AI expansion will change our work which work will be important for us. I think the ideation and also decision-making will be the very important role for human. So helping with the AI technology, will do some kind of ideation platform or decision-making process. And also, mobile technology are very expanding, and then all of them have tablets or smartphones and those things. And also, for the work style, we change globalization like us from many countries, all the things together. So production in China or designing in Tokyo and making concepts in here in Stanford. So those countries should be, how can I say, a collaboration needed. And then so many products is product-based. I mean, formally, there are long time span to make products. For a car, for example, 5 or 10 years development. After that, there will be a production. But now, it's changing for every month or every day. The application software is developed and changed rapidly. So the team to develop those things is changing for project-based, not a fixed project. And then we are thinking physical office is for human collaboration. So we are taking this picture for the future work style, like Minority Report thing. One is the center. There will be intuitive UI to handle all the information at the same time with many collaborators. But still, we can join that collaboration from remotely, remote location at home or in the other office in other countries. But we need one point to access information platform to share all the information all together. And then we are testing or searching about the problem actually working people feel. The first one is members cannot join a discussion. And the second one, remote collaboration has bigger issues than local one. It means we'd like to have a deep discussion in which all members express their ideas and opinions very actively. They hope, but actually, but in a real discussion, it is very hard to do. Someone who is very, how can I say, actively express their opinion, but others not. So we would like to change this situation. And the second one is, if a deep discussion is needed, we should make a business trip to have a face-to-face meeting like this. We are gathering together here in one room. Why is it? So why we cannot make this one as a remote collaboration only? So we would like to find such kind of solution. So the left part is meeting ratio of ideation and problem-solving meetings. So about 22% of the meeting is for these. So currently, 30% and 20% for report or information sharing only. Probably these meetings can be replaced with just remote collaboration tools. But for these ideation or decision making, it is very hard to make it only a remote collaboration, we think. So actual voice of customers, members from remote locations, they say, are very hard to express ideas and opinions other than voice. So with the TV conference, we can say words, or our opinion, But if we are making some output on the, for example, whiteboards or PowerPoint or Excel or such kind of digital document, still it is very hard to make or co-create with these members. And the second one is we cannot join the process to sorting and or adjustment of contents. So we'd like to say this portion will be the next to this one. But if you can express it as a voice, but still, it is very hard to transform to other transfer to other people. How do we think to change the contents? So we are thinking to change the contents co-creation process from here. Integration of analog and digital data can visualize flow of discussion, and all members can join to co-creation work. How we can do it? We are making some prototypes of collaboration tool now, and our idea is before we are using projectors and whiteboards. Actually, what is we are doing is the first, we will share the contents everyone brings. And I'm preparing these slides and from my PC. And then we would like to change to Renate, then pull it back and then pass it to Renate. And there will be another presentation. And one by one, we'll share the information. But after that, we would like to move to a discussion. Then we are using whiteboards to talk about this part is which way and this part is. And then these two work or process is separated into two parts. And actually, the result is just on the presentation file, and others is on whiteboards. And sometimes we took pictures of the result of the whiteboard. But still, it is very hard to share all the information together. So we'd like to make it one. For the after, we would like to make kind of interactive whiteboards. And we can put all the information together from any PC at the same time as a window. And sharing all the information on the one screen. And then you can exchange information about this. But actually, there are so many interactive whiteboards in the market already. And from Microsoft, they are offering Surface Hub now. But still, they are not used for business use, mainly. So for educational part, it is successful, I think. But for business, it is very hard to do. Probably it's because for education is one too many. So on the front end, we are thinking doing something. And then sharing with them is okay. But for the business scenario, we need to co-creation. But current interactive whiteboards has no such kind of capability. Actually, to do a presentation, still, it's more like projector, just putting one information on one screen. Then it can be shared with them. But actually, we are using this prototype, but there are so many challenges for us. The first one is physical office really needed in future work style. There are so many opinions about we are changing to a mobile world. So really, this kind of real office will remain same or not is asked. And the second one is how we can make ROI clear to improve collaboration efficiency. This is the very, many times we asked, what is ROI? Especially interactive whiteboards costs very much. Basically, this is because we are asked. And how we express this ROI is very, very difficult challenge for us. The third one is tools can support to remove obstacles between analog and digital. Actually, we are making prototype and testing with customers, but really we can remove this kind of barrier or not is the issue we would like to solve. Thank you.
Fantastic, and I would like to invite to the floor Karen Kocher from Cigna.
Morning. Thank you for having me here. This is terrific. I have never said anything in 10 or 15 minutes, so I'm going to do my best. I tend to talk for longer periods of time, but today I'm going to do my best to fit this in 10 or 15 minutes. A couple things for you to note before I get started. One, I'm the Chief Learning Officer for Cigna Corporation. We are about a 40,000 employee health service organization in about 27 countries. Our primary areas of emphasis are everything to do with health, well-being, and sense of security. Insurance, yes, but not nearly to the extent that many people would expect or think. So very much on the service side these days, and very much in concert with that on the learning and development front. So I oversee learning and development, performance management, strategic talent planning, most activities related to talent in our workforce, and making sure that the talent is ready to perform in advance of the needs of the organization. And so we've been moving in the direction of basically learning as a service, and primarily learning as a service with the employees learning with and from others as their primary way of learning. The others, not necessarily being other employees, it could be others outside of the organization. And the others also do not necessarily have to be people. It's other resources, right? So the resources can actually, definitely be people, but they could also be any other forms of inputs that would be valuable to the employee. And so I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing, but keep in mind that our vision for learning within our organization and with all of our major stakeholders really is all about learning with and from each other. We, the learning and development functions, we're called Cigna University. We are not a traditional university. We're organized much more like a consulting organization because our strong belief is that the formal learning, even most of the informal learning can and should be done by others with other resources. So whether it's user-generated content, whether it's curation of resources from out in the public domain, however it is that people go about getting what they need and then in turn facilitating that development with others, those are things we can assist with, but our primary job is no longer to develop content, which is, of course, a historic learning organization. So what I'm going to tell you a little bit about is what have we been doing as the learning organization to really aid other people in doing the types of things that I have described. So I have 4 examples I want to provide to you today. I'm going to spend just a very little bit of time on each one to make sure you get a sense of what it's all about. The first one is Jam, Connect for Growth, and Jamapaloozas. So for those of you who have ever heard of Success Factors, my guess is many of you have. It's out in this area. Success Factors happens to be the learning management system that we use. It is not necessarily the right or best for whatever it is you might be thinking of or talking about. It is the one we happen to use, and Jam happens to be the collaborative capability within that tool set, hence the Jam reference. Connect for Growth is our performance management system. So we went in early 2015 to a no ratings employee performance management system, which may not sound like a big deal. I know most of you sitting out there are very cool. You're from Silicon Valley. I represent a 200-year-old organization. So we were about the 51st organization in the world to move to a no performance rating system. We gave ourselves a huge pat on the back. It was a really big deal. And I'll tell you a little bit about Jamapaloozas and what role that they played in making sure that we could be successful with that. Second example is Yam Jams. So we're also in a world, and I think this is something for everybody to keep in mind when you talk about intelligence amplification or augmenting intelligence. We currently have a world where we have Yammer and we have Jam. So we had Jam up until, well, currently we have Jam, but we started using it about 2 years ago. Yammer came on the scenes because our IT organization works very closely with Microsoft. Microsoft, as you all know, purchased Yammer. So all of a sudden, Yammer makes its way into the organization, but not as an official tool that people are definitely going to use, more as like a test and learn. So we, as the group that is primarily responsible for helping people figure out what to do with all this, now found ourselves in a world where we could no longer simply talk about and promote and integrate Jam. We now also had to help people figure out what both of them could do and when was the right time to use which one, right? And so that's what Yam Jams are all about. I'll explain those in a second. Gamification and a social learning boot camp. So we've actually done quite a bit of gamification and have used it for a variety of activities at Cigna. It's played a really valuable part in some major change and some major transformations that we've gone through over the course of the past couple of years. I'll explain one example there. And then lastly, I don't know how many of you, raise your hand if you've heard of NAC. Okay, so one person out there, that's great. NAC is a really interesting resource. It's basically, there's one, I'll give you an example. There's one game that's part of the NAC tool set that's called Wasabi Waiter. And Wasabi Waiter is basically a game that you play, and through the process of playing the game, which is a psychometrically validated process, you actually can learn for yourself, or say in my case, I can learn this about our employees. You can learn what their natural tendencies are in decision making and performance and personality characteristics. Really fascinating. And if you do this often enough for a grouping of people, you can figure out the profile that would make your highest performer. Right? So you can actually see of the higher performers, what are these characteristics, these tendencies that seem to most create this environment in which they can be successful and for which they have the best natural characteristics, and you can make sure that you have more of the people in those roles and better hiring profiles, et cetera. So again, I'll tell you a little bit about that. So that's the tee up, and I have to do these quickly. So success factors, as I mentioned, and Jam. So in the beginning of 2015, we switched our performance management system, as I mentioned. We decided to switch it, and we only did really one formal learning activity for people prior to the switch. And that was a formal learning activity focused on managers being better coaches and being able to have better quality conversations. Because there were not going to be any more performance management activities. No formal mid-year reviews, no formal end-of-year reviews, no formal conversations that are all about, what did you do last year? And so we said, well, okay, if you're going to take away all that, including ratings, you have to have a way for a manager to talk to their people on a continuous basis and in a quality way. Quality as defined by both the employee and the manager. So to give you a sense, we had more than 50% of our organization before we switched our performance management system that indicated that every aspect of performance management was a waste of their time. No, so a waste, right? This was more, and this is an organization who's typically incredibly collegial. And whenever we ask questions about performance management, we usually get very positive answers. But we asked 5 very pointed questions about our old performance management system, and we were told, absolute waste of time. So we decided that we would know the new performance management system was valuable if people said it was a good use of their time. So that's what we were after, right? Employees saying the conversation's good use of time. So we ended up creating a Jam site. It was the primary mechanism by which people would actually share their experiences about how was it going. What did you do as a manager? How were these conversations going? What kind of coaching were you providing? What were you learning through that process? And we set this up so that we wanted everybody, as they did this type of work, to learn with and from each other. And what was fascinating about the Jam experience is that we expected maybe a little bit of feedback going back and forth between people. We really never expected what you see up on the screen. So we had more than 6,600 employees contributed to the Jam environment within a very short period of it being launched. Now, keep in mind, we have 40,000 people, of which more than 15,000 of them are outside the United States and do not necessarily speak great English. So the large proportion of that 6,600 came from about 25,000 people. We thought it was a really good sign that people really do as they're going through these difficult changes. It may sound easy just to take off the handcuffs of performance management, but if you're a manager who's been operating with that kind of a system since the time you started managing, which most of us have because it's been around since World War II, it's a hard thing to do, and your support network becomes really important. So 6,600, you can see the rest of the information there. Jam-a-paloozas, really very interesting. What we did was we took a panel of experts and put them on Jam, and you, the employee or the manager, whomever, could go out to Jam and you could ask questions of the experts. The experts would type in and send back the answer, but they'd basically be doing it within this public forum. So you wouldn't have to take a phone call from everybody from the help desk, or your HR generalist wouldn't have to talk to everybody. In the course of the Jam-a-palooza, you'd see everybody who's asking, you'd see everybody who's answering, and the knowledge that would be gained and shared through that process would be significant. And so we did quite a few Jam-a-paloozas. Not only did we do them for performance management, but they were so popular that we did them for our benefits open enrollment process and some other activities. So we found that it was an incredible way to really support and amplify the intelligence of the organization as it was developed throughout this performance management process. This you cannot see really at all. Suffice it to say, this is our Jam page. So if you could see it close up, it is the Jam page that people go in and take a look at. It provides all kinds of great information, including access to the Jam forums. Yam Jams. So I mentioned to you, we did this Yam Jam because we were trying to show people how to make use of both of these tool sets for intelligence generation and knowledge, skill building. And what we basically did was we scheduled real-time topic-based conversations on Yammer. You can see what that is. So we were trying to show it's hosted on Jam, so you could still go to one place, but when you're in there, the actual conversation is happening on Yammer, which is a feature of Yammer that is different than Jam. So we wanted people to still feel comfortable going to the tool they knew, Jam, but making use of an additional capability which would be brought to them by Yammer. The part that we were so astounded by, and I think this tells a story of a corporation, so whether we like it or not, we are not nearly as on the bleeding edge with all things as when people, the opening keynote speakers as an example, talk about things. So we're a little bit behind, but we have to make use of this every day for real things that go on in a corporation. And so we're really proud of the fact that we had more than 400 interactions took place during this Yam Jam, which is a relatively short forum. And people have full-time jobs, right? It's not like doing Yam Jam and the test and learn is all we wanted them to do. They're not professional researchers. It's just part of what they're trying to do a better job. So we had 400 interactions. We had 270 likes. This one I think is really particularly valuable. It's not a big number, but it's a really great start. 5 micro storytellers. For somebody who has to go out there and put forward a story in an online environment to a group of people that they likely don't know many of, is a scary thing for most people to do. And for people to go out there and be basically the storytelling lead in one of these environments, which is key to this learning and sharing with and for each other, that was really powerful. We didn't know if we'd get any that didn't come from our organization, and the fact that we even got the 5 in this short period of time was really terrific. All right, I'm not gonna explain this in gory detail, but you can read about it, and I can share some information at a later date. But gamification, we have been working with gamification for at least several years at Cigna. We started when we first changed some big HR kind of policies and programs at Cigna. We put out some gamified learning programs that people really got a big kick out of. They got a kick out of them because it was so different. They also got a kick out of them because they really enjoyed the learning experience. We did have a few people respond and say, I don't understand why you're having me waste my time on this fun thing. I thought I was supposed to be learning management practices. So there's always a few, right? But for the most part, people have really enjoyed gamification. But we're trying to take it to a new level. We're trying to make it more about what most people experience on most days, not the rare, large corporate change as the only environment. So the gamification that we're doing is in combination with this social learning workshop that we recently rolled out. It was our first, as you can see, their guided social learning experience. We hosted it entirely on a social platform, and we had about 40 people go through this experience about how to make them better able to work with gamification and with social learning as part of their job in the university. So We learned very clearly that our employees, before they can promote this with others, need to get better at it themselves. That's what the social learning workshop was all about. And you can see some of the details, the weekly activities that gave participants the experience of the different approaches, the shared insights that they were asked to work with each other on, and then, of course, the shared format using Jam, using video. We are one of the rare organizations that not only has a company-wide blog that anybody can post to without any pre-approval or any vetting. We're also one of the rare ones that has user-generated content. So you can upload a video almost any time you'd like on Jam. Nobody has to screen it. Nobody has to review it. If you believe it's something that needs to be shared and will help other people learn and develop in the organization, you're allowed to upload that content into our environment. That was a big piece of what this was all about. More on the L&D professional side to share with them why that would be valuable, how others do it, and then so they can embed that into the processes and procedures they're utilizing. And then lastly, NAC. So I mentioned to you, and if you haven't, I would definitely go out and look at KNACK, I believe it's .com. We've been working with them for about a year and a half. When we first heard about NAC, it was because they were promoting their tool set to help you understand the profile of the ideal worker in any type of a role. And then once you understood that, of course, you could better acquire talent using that profile. And although we were really excited by that, for a variety of reasons, what we decided to do instead was to move forward with it as a development mechanism. Because what we thought would be powerful is if we could understand who the high performers are, which we typically can figure that out. So if we know who the high performers are, what is it about those high performers that is so powerful, that makes them so successful? We could break that down and then develop others to be more like that, right? So it's a very growth mindset orientation. So yes, we could still acquire people using the profile, but our bigger opportunity, because we have 40,000 people and we're always having to create pipelines of new talent for new roles, better opportunity was to figure out who knows what, right? And how do we develop that? So that's NAC. Take a look at it when you can. It's really very powerful. We're making use of that as well. Happy to talk more about it. And if I'm not around, my colleague Sam Rindell is also here from Cigna. So find either one of us if you'd like to talk more about any of this. Thank you.
As you can see, it's drinking from the fire hose, and our next speaker is Marcelo Guimarães from Sábia Experience.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank MEDAX for inviting me. So I'm going to talk about this immersive environments for team intelligence. There we go. So Sábia is a Brazilian tech company. It is located, our headquarters is in Florianópolis in the south of Brazil. We have office in Rio and São Paulo. We have been a member of MEDAX since 2013. So basically, we developed a platform to help companies and organizations and communities to transform organization people through immersive learning experience. We have been working a lot for the last 10 years in industry environment, industrial environment, but now we are moving to also service, health service, retail, finance, and franchising sector. One of the insights is very important for us is it's the first time in our history that many generations are living together in a working place, in a working environment. You know, people who were born was born before 1945, the boomers, the Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, and each of these different people had experience in communications and used different tools to learn, to cooperate, to share knowledge. So what we learned that in some studies that people, the youngest people, Generation Z, they are just spending 2 years in companies. They get tired, they don't want to move, find different jobs, different experiences. And for older people, they are in their corporation for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But you can imagine the paradox is that a lot of experience are with these people. And these people, the young people, they have a lot of knowledge in terms of use of technology, but they don't have experience about the business, about the knowledge of the corporation. So how we can put these people together, sharing knowledge, and use the same language that everyone could use. And doesn't matter if they are tech savvy or not, right? And of course, many companies, many organizations, I use this model of 70-20-10, is that 70% of the workforce could learn from experiential learning, social learning, as Cigna showed some of the experience here. And we are more focused in those 70 and 20. So on-demand and good authentic stories at high-scale organizational learning experience. So Sábia has been developing this platform for at least 10 years. We have been working in this environment for industrial application for at least 5 years. So we kind of created a language that people can share and build knowledge, at the same time addressing informal learning, not just the formal. We are not focusing on formal learning nowadays. Some of the activities of the companies is addressing this issue, but we are more focused on informal, on-demand, authentic stories, authentic knowledge when the workers need. Okay? So the question is, how might immersive technologies help companies to create and scale up organizational and community learning experience and team intelligence based on good, authentic, and engaging case stories? So we love storytelling. We love share how people can transform knowledge and good stories in interactive games and interactive educative content. So we have been working with many big companies like oil and gas companies. Of course, if you apply training in compliance and information about the rules, people will improve their performance. They will follow the rules because they have to, right? But what you are looking for is how to motivate people, engage people to follow the rules because they want it, because they see the real value, right? So we should move from compliance to commitment, right? So what we have done is analyzing the main facts that the platform should consider to engage professionals in communities of interest, not community of practice inside the company, but for all organizations and people involved with that business. Consider a broader view of communities of interest. So the content should be really authentic. People should see themselves in that situation. So the process of learning is better. Case and storytelling experience to inspire and educate people. Clear gamified goals. In our platform, you have odysseys, journeys, tracks, challenges, and missions. Everything you are learning, you have a mission, you have a track defined by the company, but you have protagonists to follow to choose the path you want. Being part of teams and communities, trust, transparency, and safety in the environment. You have to trust the knowledge. So the games should not cheat you. So every time you take a decision, the game will give you the right feedback. Protagonism, on-demand, ubiquitous access, altering experience, sharing, bridging generational and knowledge gaps. We learned many years ago, we started designing those contents, but we learned that the community should develop its own content. So we developed a set of tools to simplify to the experts, to all the people to transform their knowledge in interactive and immersive content. Gamification, reputation, community economy. Of course, now, today it's much easier to talk about it, but 15 years ago it was almost impossible. The companies were a little bit afraid of gamification. Okay, so we developed a case-based immersive environment for team intelligence and learning. There are some pictures of a big company, food industry there, to applying this game as teams and individuals. We kind of create, I'm sorry about the format there, but this Odyssey ecosystem. We kind of create the Uber of the immersive education. So you have a community partner who can stimulate, cultivate the community. We provide the platform, but also the experience providers, the experts inside the company, outside the company can provide the content, and the user and professional can use it. Of course, sponsors can help to finance this. So it is a business model based on the Uber model with collaborative economy, share economy. So everybody wins in this process. So basically, we stimulate a network of experience providers, authentic cases and stories, and all the platforms. It's a marketplace. It has altering tools to transform that knowledge and putting everything together to provide these case-based immersive learning tracks, stories, odysseys, and journeys. So the workers, the users, can through website and apps can interact and learn from it. Okay, so this is the idea. We have a demo here. So we'd like to invite you to visit there, the demo. So basically, you see here, this is a track. Oh, I'm sorry, this is some words in Portuguese here, but it's a track, okay. So it is an example that you have a partner of the network. So here you can address the altering tools. So you can create not just games, but also use the information you have in YouTube or any source, and you put in the same context, the tracks, so the worker and the user can go there and find and develop this goal. Once they develop all this, play all these games, go all the content, answer the quiz, they can get some medals, so everything is gamified already, right? And we learned from other companies we worked that sometimes they develop a content, but they live in a social platform or on YouTube, but people will not go there because they are not in the context. What is useful is when they use the work is there, is the 5 minutes, 10 minutes bullets that can play using cellular phones and address the video or the content. So there is another way. You can have a board game. You can play around. Sorry. There are some devices. Of course, all this device. We have alternate tools for group devices, individual devices. And of course, we are going to integrating with VR and sensors like Spire. We are talking with Spire here. Is a stress sensor. Is a company here. We are trying to integrate how we can measure the stress and the interactivity, and the game will change according to the state of stress. Okay. So some of the benefits: increase of productivity, authentic knowledge sharing at scale, tacit to explicit knowledge, on-demand learning for the workforce and professionals, collaborative culture, increase employee and professional engagement, and bridging generational gaps. Okay, just one more. Oh, here is some real-life limitations. Very difficult to some old companies, big companies, they're very conservative culture. So it's not the case of Cigna. I've seen that now. It's 200 years old. It's amazing to have this kind of culture because usually it's not the case. Privacy issues of companies, sometimes of the knowledge should be protected. Labor laws in this industry regulation, some countries, you have to be careful about the laws in the country. A lack of collaborative economic culture, tech, infrastructure deficiencies. The future insights, integration with ubiquitous individual and IoT, Internet of Things sensors, enhancement of collaborative culture, and smart data. We're seeing how AI can help to address all the needs of the workers and also find the best content from experience providers to the users. Okay? So thank you very much. Please, I invite you to visit the website and visit the demo. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, my wonderful PhD student, Maria Frank, who also is a wonderful example of our collaboration between the PBL Lab, MediaX, and Konica Minolta over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk about engagement detection to augment collaboration. This is a project I was working on in collaboration with Konica Minolta and the ongoing collaboration with MediaX and the PBL Lab. So I want to step back a second to look at how this fits into the idea of augmenting personal intelligence. And in order to do that, the question is, what is personal intelligence? And in my definition, it's between the IQ, the personality, and the emotional intelligence. More recently, research shows that what separates the great leaders from the average leaders is their level of emotional intelligence. It's how well they can read people. It's how well they can adjust to their surroundings and how their employees interact with them. Emotional intelligence consists of 4 components. It's the self-awareness and management, as well as the social awareness and management. And where the augmentation comes in predominantly is in the awareness piece. How can we help people to improve their emotional intelligence, their awareness of themselves and their team members, to improve collaboration in teams all over the world. And the thing is, awareness happens in communication. Awareness is created through communication. This is one of the most renowned graphs of communication research that says only 7% of what we perceive is based on the spoken word. So most of the message that we perceive, the awareness that is created, happens through nonverbal signals. Pitch, body posture, motion, all those different things that we intuitively perceive, but not consciously process. It's something that happens in the background, and depending on how well we are trained in specific skills related to emotional intelligence or how high the baseline itself is, the more or less accurate that evaluation is of body posture. So the question is, how can we help people to be better, to create a better understanding of those signals that they perceive? And especially in collaboration, this is very crucial. We spend a lot of hours in meeting every day, and we try to understand whether the members of the meeting of the team are engaged, whether they're bored, whether they agree or disagree with what is going on. So there needs to be a way of better identifying that. And identifying that team collaboration and dynamic atmosphere is already hard face-to-face. And we heard before how important the face-to-face interaction is. But there are so many teams now who are distributed, who work from behind a screen, who sometimes have video, most of the time only voice. So all that additional information, the 93% of communication gets lost in distributed work. And the question is, how can we help those teams to bring back all the information that is carried through nonverbal language? And this is not just true for group meetings, as said in the face-to-face as well as distributed interaction, but more and more becomes also a topic for human-computer interaction and how humans interact with, for instance, displays in meetings or other objects that more and more react to the human experience. And the definition of engagement in this scenario is an attentive state of listening, observing, and giving feedback, and a protagonistic action in the interaction. So we're looking at the meeting itself. It's not a work engagement over a long period of time, but the engagement in a meeting, in a conversation that is going on, which is crucial to understand what information do our team members share? Is that relevant to my particular work? And what insight might I have? What knowledge might I have to respond to the information I just heard in the team? So the question is, how can we help, again, defining this engagement state? And often it happens on a binary level. So it's either engaged or disengaged, very simple. But that isn't actually the case. So I was working on a new framework to define engagement in collaboration, because there are many different levels of how people can be engaged in a meeting, ranging from disengagement, from being distracted on their phone, multitasking, not actually listening. But then there comes a stage of a relaxed engagement where you lean back and listen without actually being affected what is said. And that moves into an involved engagement where you're curious about what your team member has to say and how that information is pertinent to what you do. And that's when you create nonverbal feedback that participants can receive, and finally leads into the intention to interact with your team members, to actually say something, respond to whatever is going on in your meeting. And then finally leads to action, to actually be the protagonist speaking and interacting with objects, for instance. And this is one of the items that is often used as engagement. Is someone speaks means the person is engaged as a single indicator. And then finally leading to involved engagement. So a protagonist that tries to integrate the whole team and help them to engage even more in the interaction. And there are a lot of studies done on nonverbal indicators of engagement. And there are just some named on there. But what is important to note that all those studies look at maybe one or two factors. They look at, for instance, just the body lean angle. However, that is not how we perceive body language. This is not how emotional intelligence works. We see the whole person, and every single piece of information is used to interpret behavior and a position and the engagement level in meetings, for instance. So what I was looking for is how to use the new processing capabilities and machine learning algorithm that we heard about before to support the processing of all that information, of all the knowledge that is already there, and all the information everybody is displaying when they interact. And actually assign those different components and those different features to specific engagement levels, and thereby be better able to define how engaged people are in the meeting, and giving the team leader or the facilitator the possibility to interfere. Be like, oh, people are disengaged, maybe we need to change something in our agenda or how we do our meetings. And what is helpful for that is, for instance, Kinect is one of the sensors that is available that reads body posture and gesture and derives information from it. And there are so many other sensors that are readily available and very ubiquitous, ranging from voice analysis to facial expression analysis that is integrated in even increasingly smaller devices. And especially in distributed meeting settings, we sit in front of our computer, and the computer is able to already capture a lot of information. So taking advantage of all these different sensors that are available, the question is, how can we bring the capabilities of those sensors and the knowledge from communication into interpreting that behavior? And the way I approached this is to create a framework that consists of all the classifiers, all the nonverbal signals that have been identified, to better understand the different engagement levels and link them. So for instance, just a brief example is touching the head. There are different ways in which people touch their head in interaction. Kind of just crossing the hands behind the head is kind of a relaxed leaning back. But when, for instance, I lean my head on my hand and touch my mouth, it's normally an attentive listening state. It's an involved engagement. And we can teach machines to look for all those signals that are already there, to objectively identify them and objectively look for all of them, versus where a human being only is able to process so many information pieces that are happening while in a meeting, while being focused on the context, as well as all those nonverbal signals from multiple people in the room. So having this database and being able to use machine learning to interpret behavior and the engagement level allows to give accurate measurements of all the team members, not just the one you're looking at currently, but everybody in the room, and create feedback for those. And this feedback can be used in the future on an individual and team level. On an individual level, to create more self-awareness. Often we're in meetings and 10 minutes later we realize, oh, I haven't been listening for the last 10 minutes. And that's when we finally re-engage. But at that point, we might have missed crucial information for the project, for the team. So by using that type of immediate computated feedback on the engagement level of myself, I might be able to re-engage in a meeting quicker, to be made aware of, oh, I'm drifting off, I'm doing something else. And also to just be aware of how emotions are projected. Some people might appear disengaged even though they're very actively listening, and it allows them to communicate that to their team members and be like, listen, I might look disengaged right now, but it's super interesting what you're saying and I'm listening. And that creates understanding and prevents a lot of frustration that is happening in meeting interactions. And at the same time, on the team level, it allows to more accurately evaluate how your team members are doing, not just in a face-to-face situation, kind of augment the experience you have and give you more information, but more importantly in a distributed setting where most of that information is lost in general. And some communication tools just show, oh, that person is of the application we're using now, so they're multitasking, but this actually gives more insight into the mental state of team members and thereby allows to be able to maybe take a break or restructure the discussion to re-engage everybody into the process. And this is the application of engagement detection on a human scale, on an interaction meeting facilitating scale. But this type of information, it basically creates a number through a machine learning algorithm. And those numbers of engagement levels can also be used to inform technology. For instance, in environmental adjustment of smart homes, if your house knows whether you're relaxed or whether you're super active, it might be able to adjust, say, lighting or air temperature. Same goes with object navigation and interaction that is done with displays or attempted to be done with displays, but in the future in smart homes becomes more and more important. Simple things like approaching the kitchen sink after cutting chicken allows you the thing to start running water without actually needing to touch it. And that needs engagement detection, needs to see, the objects need to evaluate whether the human wants to interact with them. And finally, other things like gesture recognition, which is still a problematic and difficult issue. It allows to assign specific gestures and thereby segmentation and classification based on engagement levels. So if we know how engaged someone is, the computer and the machine learning algorithm can easily understand which gestures are more likely to happen in those scenarios. So by using machine learning and the capabilities of sensors, we can create and augment the experience team members have and augment their understanding and emotional intelligence, which then increases performance and satisfaction within the team.